Call the town board meeting to order for November 21st, 2022. First item on the agenda is the approval. Patrick, any changes?
I will say, I am pleased to tell you, we have no additions.
I'm pleased to tell you we wouldn't accept them anyway. Board have any changes?
No.
All right, hearing none, I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Okay. I'll second that.
Motion made second, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item 3 is approval of payment of the bills.
Got them.
I'll move to approve payment of the bills. I've signed off.
Second.
Did you sign them?
Did?
Yeah.
When?
Just now.
No, when you sitting there.
Holy cow, you quick. All right, motion made second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Item 4, I need approval of minutes from November 7th, 2022. Any changes?
I saw none. Move to approve the minutes of the November 7th meeting.
Second.
Motion made second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that motion carries. Item 5, we have 2 consent agenda items.
Would you like to or me?
Mr. Chair,
Okay.
I plan on pulling item 5B, third quarter financial report. There was some minor discrepancies that I discussed with the clerk earlier.
And you were distributed a revised financial report quarterly today, earlier by email.
All right, I have a motion to pull or to adjust consent agenda. You want to make a motion to approve the other one?
I will move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
I'll second that.
Motion's made and seconded, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, then moving on to item 5B, the third quarter financial report. I did not know what was changed, so.
Would you like to do them all by yourself, or would you like some help?
Well, I had noticed that the year-over-year comparison was comparing last year to the year before, rather than this year to last year.
Correct.
So that was kind of a big deal. And there were some comments that I was mildly surprised by. And were those comments adjusted, or are they still standing?
Well,
It looks like it's still standing to
it
me.
is still standing. The reason I did not change those is I wanted to have a brief discussion with you guys about why we're changing that. And if you don't think we need to, we won't. Scott brought up the point that in many of our discussions at both our public board meetings as well as our executive committee meetings, that we have taken note of and used as an example to avoid balancing our budget with reserves. And Scott was absolutely correct in noting that. However, there was one difference, Scott, and I didn't even think about it till I talked to Tom, was that he is making that statement about using reserves this year based upon the fact that the submitted budget is going to be probably 2.5% over if we don't get some revenue help here in the last month and a half. Our discussions have been regarding using reserves to set the tax levy and budget beforehand. And I do believe that this board does not believe in taking it that direction. So I just wanted to provide the difference there. So when the board that we're speaking about goes through their machinations of setting their tax levy and budget, in the past, they have used reserves to even up their budget and tax levy. What Tom is suggesting here is that we've already set the budget and tax levy for 2022 11 months ago, but since it looks like we may be coming in about 2.5% over based upon a shortfall of revenues, he is recommending use of reserves.
So was it the shortfall of revenues, or the fact that things have come in more expensive than we had initially anticipated a year and a half ago?
Can I say yes to both? Yes.
I thought you were going to say that. That's the easy way out.
Revenues, I think we still have an opportunity to cut the 2.5 down to 1.
Because we're going to find more revenue?
Yeah, and it's delayed. Some of it's delayed and hasn't come in yet to offset the expense side of it.
Well, we've already received the county.
Counties, yeah.
Yeah. Not all of it.
I thought
Sometimes it comes in bits and
the
pieces.
final was just received 1.7 or whatever, because that's about how much the checks were.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Came in, went out.
So we've got a couple of other revenues. I don't have them in front of me right now that were shortfalls this year that we still think will come in this last quarter, but they might not.
Well, I would just like to suggest that at our next executive meeting, this be a topic, because we just had the most recent one, and I don't remember hearing anything about this. So it caught me by surprise, and yes, it's buried in the middle of the document, but I would really like to
That's fine.
have a robust
discussion.
conversation about it.
My favorites.
Yes, thank you.
That's fine.
But otherwise, it was just a matter of adjusting those years comparison.
Yeah. The two things, one is, again, he had 2021 versus 20, and the fact that we're potentially dipping into reserves, that was it.
Why don't we put that on for the December 16th executive committee?
Thank you.
Anything else, Steve?
No.
All right, that's Scott.
That's it, so
Otherwise, I need to entertain a motion to approve the consent item B.
I will move to approve consent item B, third quarter financial report.
I'll second that.
Motion made, second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed. All right, that motion carries. All right, item 6 is old business, we have none, so we'll move on to item 7, which is a public hearing. First one is Universal Forest Products, 4141 Hoffman Road. I would be looking for a motion to waive the reading.
I'll move to waive the reading that it was properly published.
Second.
Motion made, second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Then I need a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll move to open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Mike, are you going to handle this one?
Do you want me to start, Mike?
Or Evan?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. We have a conditional use permit amendment request tonight before you. UFP has an existing amendment, or a conditional use permit, that they received in 1983. It's been amended multiple times since then. This latest request is looking for an additional amendment to allow the construction of 3 new structures. They'd range in size from about 540 square feet to 1,500 square feet in size. They'd be used for storage of product on site. This was reviewed a few months ago at the September Planning Commission meeting. Mike was there to present the project and some of the details about the request to the commissioners. They did ultimately end up recommending approval. Their conditions were that the project shall be built according to the plans submitted and reviewed with this request. 2, that the project shall secure any applicable permits. 3, the project shall apply or follow any applicable regulations, and then the project shall adhere to the conditions of the previously approved conditional use permits for the site. So I'll say there's been quite a few amendments, and then the fact that the CUP was amended or approved back in 1983 means there's quite a bit of lengthy requirements already on the site. And so essentially the commission was recommending they follow any of the current rules, and then if there's anything additional the township wishes to add, that they can add that at this time. So with that, Mike, I'll let you fill the rest in.
Just a little bit of history on this request to amend the conditional use permit. Back in February at 2021, during the town's annual business license inspections and processing, it came to the town's attention, a significant building was built on the property without planning and zoning approvals or building permits. In May of 2021, UFP approached the town requesting amendments to the conditional use permit. And they were proposing to remove the large building because of fire suppression requirements and shrink that down to 4 or 5 buildings, actually. That was approved by the town board in May of 2021. After that approvals, the work was completed. Unfortunately, it did not obtain the proper permits again. Since then, town building department has been working with UFP and their design professional to get this issue resolved. The amendments to the zoning certificate and the conditional use permit in your packet are accurate to what is currently constructed on the property. So after, if the town board chooses to approve this amendment to the conditional use permit, all the unpermitted construction that exists currently is listed in the conditional use permit. I might add that a building permit is still required for these buildings that have been constructed. One of the buildings is an addition to the existing complex, which increases its square footage over 2,000, which will require fire suppression to be added. UFP is aware of that, and to my knowledge, once the building permit is issued, they will commence completion of that project. There was other noted items in conditional use permit number 17 through 21. Talks through the process of working with the architect. Those items have been resolved or are in the process of being resolved. And I think that's all I had. If you have any questions.
Steve?
Well, I think, Mike, you've worked through diligently what the issues were outstanding on this. And I do remember, I don't know if it was Scott or somebody coming before the board once upon a time and saying, we need to get this going and done, and we'll follow whatever needs to be done, but yet the building permits still haven't, the building was built without the permits. So what assurances do we have that this is not going to continue after this round with another project? Nothing.
Yeah, I would imagine they're aware of the permit requirements at this point. I can't speak for.
Well, for you, I think you've done what you can. I don't have any questions for you.
So we're looking to approve the conditional use permit allowing construction of 3 buildings.
Actually, it's a few more than that. It's 4 30 by 30 lumber storage buildings and 2 30 by 18 lumber storage buildings and a 30 by 15 addition to the existing manufacturing.
And you had mentioned just a minute ago that there's still a building that needs to have a permit. That's
All structures require a building permit that were just described. The town will be issuing one building permit for all these structures listed in the zoning certificate.
okay. So did I misunderstand what I thought I heard you say a minute ago, that there still needs to be a building permit for a facility, a structure that's more than 2,000 square feet?
That's correct.
I misunderstood you?
There is a building addition that needs to be at fire suppression.
That's not part of what we're talking about
No,
tonight.
it's listed here. The
Okay.
30 by 50 addition to the existing manufactured building in the zone.
Okay.
So that changes this application to 5 buildings versus 3? Did I get that right?
4, 5, 7 total structures.
7.
Yeah, see, this is slightly off.
Yeah, slightly?
Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but some of those structures have been built already.
They
that-
have been built and inspected and found substandard.
Correct. So there's 3 that have not been built yet, correct?
All the buildings listed in the zoning certificate are completed and constructed
Okay.
on site.
Without permitting.
No permits.
Are they now standard or they're still substandard?
They are substandard construction currently.
Are they occupied? Are they doing business out
They
of them?
are occupied. The town ordered vacation of those unpermitted structures over a year ago.
What would be the point of approving this if there's substandard construction?
I think that's a question for our attorney.
Mike?
I can respond to that. So a stipulation specifically in the zoning certificate states that the structures must comply with the engineer's recommendations. Comply with state building code. So the deficiencies in the structures are documented by a structural engineer. For them to comply with their zoning certificate, you gotta have a building permit, you gotta meet the building code. And that will be the next step in this process.
But if they're being used and they're substandard, shouldn't they be red tagged and forced to stop using them?
Not necessarily.
I can only write down the orders, so.
Not necessarily. I mean, normally you would if you red tag something, you normally would cease activity on the property, but not necessarily. It would be up to Mike if he decides it's really a health and safety issue. If it is, then yeah.
Well, Steve, just even on an insurance aspect, are we culpable because we're allowing a substandard building in the township with no permit to continue operation? That's where I was going with
No,
this.
we're not.
No,
No, we're not.
we wouldn't be.
Immunity because Mike is using his best judgment. It's a judgment. It's a policy issue, a judgment issue.
Is. So, going back to the building permit process as it relates to this, so if we approve this without, the building permit process only says that they applied and they're going to fix this, but I don't want to drag this out for another year. What's a reasonable, can we modify in a condition that this has to be rectified within a certain amount of time?
Sure you can.
Because I'm not willing to give it without condition that we move forward promptly. And I don't know what we need to discuss what promptly is. Realistically, how fast can this stuff be fixed? Substandard to standard and
Yeah,
sprinkled.
so these repairs, I believe to be pretty quick, easy repairs on these structures. It's pretty simple structures, so, it'll just be a case of getting, contractors or who's ever making repairs on site.
I guess we'll ask them to respond to that before I'll.
Well, and plus too, with this being after the fact and kind of, I don't know, I can't believe any working business does not know you need permits to start throwing buildings up. And now this has cost the township quite a bit of added cost just in your time alone. You spent a lot of time on this, a lot of running around to this site. And I don't know, Chad, do we have any way to recoup those costs?
Not really.
I mean, it seems to me, when they first came to us, it was all like, oh, we got to get it done, we got to go. And now here we are, over a year later, and we're still dealing with substandard buildings. It puts a black mark on the township, too, that we're allowing this. It kind of bothers me that this has gone this, and it's not any fault of yours, but some of these businesses, I think, deserve a scolding because this is not acceptable.
Mr. Chair, I would ask the township attorney to comment on whether or not you can add a friendly amendment requiring a certain amount or a time frame in which to adhere to, or else there's some kind of penalty associated with that.
Yes, you can. The town board has the authority to issue or not issue a CUP, and you can amend it any way you want. I see your point, and I think you should add some deadline to get things done by.
Well, it's the whole reason for, behind a conditional use permit, we can put conditions on it.
Sure.
It's up to the board's
Yes.
suggestion. Are there any other questions, Evan or Mike?
I think you may have just answered it. If we approve the conditional use permit, it would be step one. The second would be to actually have the buildings brought up to standard, and I guess that's kind of what you're talking about.
Right.
Okay, all right, that's fine, thank you.
Mike, I just want to be clear on this, this building permit issue. They have no building permits for any of the 7 buildings,
That's correct.
and all of them are up and all of them are being used.
Correct.
All right. Steve, you got anything else?
No.
Evan, you got anything else?
No.
All right. Hearing none, I need a motion to open up for public comment.
I'll move to open up the public comment portion.
Second.
Motion made, second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We have a rep, I believe, from Forest UFP. Just state your name and address for the record.
My name is Scott Mahler with Progressive Architecture. I'm the designer of brought in on this project. And then we have Ed, excuse me, Ed Blank, production manager at UFP.
What's your title?
Production manager. And I won't get into whether UFP was aware of the building permit process or not. I'm gonna let that one sit because it was just guessing. But yeah, there's 7 buildings. Actually, I think 2 of the buildings need to be sprinkled. Or 7 buildings, 1 needs to be sprinkled, and then there's an 8th building, their sprinkler system needs to be added to. Some of the lengthy time items were once I got introduced to the project, we were digesting the project and trying to find out what was wrong. But then one that took several months was actually finding an engineer that was willing to look at the whole buildings and read through the existing engineering drawings and certify that with those drawings would work in the state of Minnesota. We talked to the original installer and manufacturer, and basically I think word has just got ghosted. So that took months. Find another engineer, we did. Image engineering, and he's got the reports. I double checked, they are already signed, so we can probably submit within, I think it takes a week or 2 for you guys to process your paperwork, doesn't it?
Well, to get approval from the board, it's going to be 2 weeks between board meetings, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so we can submit shortly thereafter. Most of the changes that we found, we meaning my structural engineer found were, I'm going to say hold downs, footing foundation issues. There's some extra things that need to be done, according to the existing drawings, and then according to what our engineer thought as well. So UFP, I understand, has the funds approved for the building improvements, including the sprinkler system. Building improvements should go fairly well, I think. Sprinkler system will need to be designed as a separate component, and one of our concerns is the availability of a sprinkler subcontractor or a contractor to do the work and find all the parts and pieces. So we may ask a little additional time to complete the sprinkler work. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's an extra hydrant or something on the site too. one is the 30 by 50 structure that's adjacent to an existing block building, but both need to be sprinkled because they're both over 2,000 square feet. I'll answer any more questions that you may have. Lawson, if you have anything else
I
like
mean, I
that.
can fill in if you have any questions. I'm a little bit later on this, but I've been on site for several years. So I have a general familiarity with the project.
Scott Mauer, is that Mauer? You mentioned when you first came on board, it took a little while to digest what needed to be done. When did you start when were you, I guess, brought on?
I can't remember the date, but I do remember Mike's comments, and he said you should have. I was expecting this call a year ago. It's got my attention right away, so I had no idea that was that. But I'm going to say early summer. Yeah, spring. 6 months at the most.
This year or last year? This year.
Yep.
Part of the digestion was running out, field measuring the buildings, kind of walking the site several times because you go back to your little architect desk and think you have everything figured out. I'm like, oh, no, let's go back over. And then it did take us a couple months, I think, to find an engineer
That was my next question. If you started roughly June of this year, when did you get an architectural engineer? Structural engineer, sorry. Okay.
would be a better guess.
Okay.
Another thing, though, that we did accomplish is we took, I'm going to say, a couple months just doing a fire lane study. So we reorganized all the circulation on the site, added a couple parking stalls that will be dedicated just for firefighting vehicles. Looked at the widths of all the fire lanes, existing fire lanes, looked at the turning radiuses to make sure the fire truck will, and the other apparatus will get through the site. So that took that took quite a few meetings back and forth between, I'm going to say, staff
Okay.
and myself, figuring that out.
That's it. Thank you.
Is it, Steve?
Okay, realistically, you say you might need a little extra time. What would be a reasonable time frame in your mind to accomplish what needs to be done?
I would think we could find someone to repair the buildings fairly quickly. 120 days.
Now, 120 days does not include your sprinkler work, though, right?
That would not include the sprinkler work, and I'd say
So now add that part in there. 120 days to do the minor repairs. What would you think is reasonable expectation to accomplish the rest of it?
to complete the work. That's a really loaded question, especially with the parts and pieces and bells and whistles.
And there lies the issue for me is that it started in February of 2021, and we're heading to February of 2023 by 90 days. Now we're 2 years into the project,
Right.
and now we're going well beyond that. For something that should not have occurred in the first place, it should have all been done up front. I'm not necessarily talking, either of you two, I'm just,
I'm not taking it that way. Believe
Yeah.
me, I know I'm working on a fire station in Winston right now. And there's a gap between the street utility and the fire sprinkler system. And that's taken 9 months.
Yeah, what else you got, Steve?
nothing, that's 9 months.
And I think part of the problem was the wrong size was ordered the first time. 3 months later.
Hey, Scott,
What's that?
can you kind of give me a overview of this? Was there an architect involved originally with the original buildings?
No, and one
So-
wasn't really required.
Okay, so
Just a
they,
structural.
so they brought in just a construction company and put up the buildings?
Well, I think what happened is they, let's say, went to a building construction company that does these type of structures, and they have a structural engineer that comes as part of the package deal. So they do all the calculations and things like that.
Ed, how long have you been production manager?
This site, I've been there since end of first quarter 19, I think, March
March of this year?
19.
19.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, you were there before this whole project started, obviously.
This all kicked off, yeah, within months of my arrival. So
Okay, because I'm still confused that they had no architect, they just called the construction company has their own engineer, they come out and put up these buildings. I find it really hard to believe that any construction company would even think about doing this without asking where's the permit. So I know I can throw you guys under the bus right now, but this has been really frustrating for this board. And this is something that it's just, this is a fire that's going to be hard to put out. So now all of a sudden, you can't get the original engineer to okay the original buildings. That makes me nervous because now Mike's got to deal with another engineer that didn't even have anything to do with the buildings. And now what I'm hearing you say is you could probably have these fixed in 120 days. Do you even have someone lined up to fix them right now?
No, not at this time. So
Again, why? You've known about this for how long now? So I'm really struggling trying to figure out how we're supposed to appease or pass this thing when this has been delay upon, and you still don't have your ducks in a row. This is really not acceptable.
well, we were waiting for the approval, and typically it goes through city council, city planning, city council, or township, and then town board. Then once that's done, you'll submit for the permit.
Well, that's a great excuse, but it doesn't hold water. I've been in construction for 40 years. When I have a project ready, it's already ready before I go looking for a permit. And then back to you've now got 7 buildings, and all of them are being used, which is against town ordinance because they've not declared safe by the township. So, I think you folks are fortunate you're still in business, because I think we had a pretty good case just to shut you down for what's been going on. And I don't know if you need to take that back to the owners or whoever, but this is just really this is a tough one to crack here. All right, I vented. Steve, you got anything else?
Well, I just, and it's neither of you two that came before the board once before, the general manager or who it was, and made assurances. It was like, give it to us or we'll move, or tell us what you'll do because otherwise we'll move operations to another state. Well, they don't operate in threats. But we said, we'll work with you. And now and I don't remember who it was, what his name was. And I know we've had to have our legal counsel generate interest at the corporate level. It seemed like, and that's why I don't want it to drag down the road again and just get, okay, we got what we want, now we're not going to finish it. I don't want to go on that long. So 120 days, I guess, and then it's up to Mike what he thinks is reasonable on the rest. I vented. I've been frustrated because I think we wasted a lot of time unnecessarily, and I don't appreciate businesses building without permits. I mean, that's not a new item. So,
Mr. Chair, if I may, I've heard the term venting. It's not venting, it's reality. The fact is, you can't put a building up without a building permit.
yeah,
And right now, you're operating basically because you're dealing with a board that's quite reasonable. You're lucky. I think if as you were asked the question before, you can set conditions on this conditional use permit. And one of the conditions is if they don't have it done in 120 days, whatever period of time you think is reasonable, then the permit is revoked.
No, that's just to revoke their business license?
Well, no, you revoke the conditional use permit.
But if we did that, they've been operating without a conditional use permit.
then we could shut them down if you wanted to.
With this red tag
Yes, we could.
you mentioned.
Yes.
Well, I just hope this discussion is going to go from here to you guys to whoever the powers may be, because it's obviously they're not hearing us. Because we've had, I don't know how many meetings with Mike, and he's been really frustrated with this whole process too, because we're not taken seriously. And maybe the threat of shutting you down might gain some attention. The township does not want to ever do that to any business, never, ever. But you guys are just pushing the envelope on this.
Steve had mentioned that it took a letter from Chad to the corporate offices, and I think that's when I noticed. I think I heard Mike say, "Well, there was some results from that letter," and that's something that really you don't want to do. Why should we have to do that? And I think Steve and Ed have really explained my feelings really well as earlier.
Our biggest problem is how are we assured that you're going to complete with whatever conditions we put on this one? Because it's been non-compliant for 2 years. So that's where we're struggling.
And you can close CUP or have the buildings vacated.
So you pointed, from my perspective, you've pointed out the sprinkler issue as a separate issue, but I think you kind of alluded to cosmetic changes to make these buildings meet code? Simple change? More structural, okay. So let me ask Mike, does 120 days seem outlandish or realistic to make the changes non-sprinkler changes?
Yeah, I think that would be plenty of time.
Like part of the issue too is if they're operating in these buildings that aren't sprinkled, that are required to, doesn't the fire marshal have some say about stopping any kind of use in the building?
So the town has full authority. Fire marshal works under the building.
All right. And what are they saying? What's fire marshal say?
He's supportive of the town's position.
All right. I get it.
From your professional opinion as it relates to the buildings that need to be sprinklered, issuing, I guess the question is, can we move forward with some caveat that you're comfortable with that piece of it still outstanding, or does it all need to get?
You want me to come up?
Please.
So for the structural repairs of the buildings, as long as you can get a contractor in to do the work, this 120 days, 90 days will be more than adequate to make those repairs. As Mr. Bauer stated, the fire suppression is a more timely thing to get done. Back 6 to 8 months ago, myself, Mr. Bauer, fire department, UFP, we met to discuss those. At that time, they were ready to order the fire suppression. I advised them that I wouldn't issue them a permit. I cannot issue a permit until the zoning approvals. So in reality, 3 or 4 of the buildings do have zoning approvals. And I could have issued a building permit to some of them, but this is so messed up already. I just didn't want to confuse it anymore. We're just going to issue one permit for all the work. So I don't know if that answers your
Well, I was gonna say, how can we issue one permit if without any caveat as to when it can be completed? I don't want an open building permit for 2 years more.
Yep, so, the building code has the 180-day rule, so, that is separate from the conditional use requirements. So I guess we can put a specific date to be done, and if not, you have to vacate the buildings. It can be as simple as that, so. But my telling them to vacate it is obviously not adequate. The town would have to take a more legal position on that. And of course, that's up to the board's decision.
So and I'm just asking the question, what if this approval was conditioned on Mike and Scott and UFP coming to an agreed upon schedule? Because I'm sure, I mean, we've kicked around 120 days, 90 days, whatever, but Mike has to be involved and agrees, yes, this is realistic. And that's for the structural piece, and then a separate agreement time frame for the sprinkling piece, which may take longer, and you have to be listening to that. If though that is agreed to, then this is issued. If those time frames pass, then we would take a more, I guess I'll say, legal stance or legal action to not only revoke this, but go the route that you were discussing, Chad, of making it a red tag. I know that's a long amendment, but I'm just throwing that out.
And that's kind of where I was heading. You know, what's reasonable on most of it? 90 days maybe, and then
Mike, what did you note was the 180 day?
So the state building code, building permits are good for 100, if no work commences in 180 days, they're expired. They expire.
Okay.
So,
Maybe.
but that is not an avenue to pursue compliance.
I know what'll happen is because they'll have an inspection at 120, that gives them another 180 to the next one.
So the way that works is it's got to stop. So you can you can issue a building permit to build this building. They could work on it for 15, 20 years. And as long as they're working continuous in 180 days, there's no authority to expire their permit.
Well, keep in mind that the conditional use permit and the building permit are two separate issues.
I understand that. And that's why I'm thinking, obviously, we already have 25 conditions, so we're going to add a number 26. Yeah, step up to the mic, please.
Mike, feel free to disagree with me, but by the time this is approved, you may not even have a building permit for 40, 45 days. 15 days for paperwork to get over to the building inspections department. My typical statement, when a client goes, well, how fast is it? Can you get a building permit? My blanket answer is 30 days.
So the town's ready to issue a building permit the day after the board approves the conditional use permit.
Well, that pretty much solves that problem.
Yeah, I mean, can that be done?
Absolutely.
yes, absolutely.
Sure.
We're not a big city, we're a township.
No, I know, but I promised that also.
No, as long as you have a full application, Mike will sign off and you can get going day after tomorrow if you want. Start on Thanksgiving, we don't care.
I think you might be mixing a couple things up here too. If what I stated was 2 weeks is probably the CUP. Mike issues building permits on a daily basis.
So building permits can be issued.
Yeah, as long as they fall under what his.
So Scott mentioned that the building permits should be issued without the CUP. The
Okay.
building official will not issue a building permit that has not
Okay.
been approved by the board.
No, I think we got that part.
Yeah, I got that.
All right, now we're just back to how we want to add this item 26. It's going to be probably some sort of timeline where at least the building's got to come into compliance
Yes.
in a reasonable amount of time. What's the board comfortable with?
I've heard 90 days, non-sprinkler.
Scott?
Works for me, if that's realistic.
Mr. Architect, is that tight? Or
Without having the sub lined up.
That's the only thing that's going through my head is getting the guy on site. The money to approve
since I'm the one that brought up the 90 days, I'm willing to go to 120, but I'm telling you that it takes expediency on your part to start hunting, because promises have been made in the past and it's just fell off to the side, and I'm not willing to let it ride past that.
We've made a lot of concessions, and I think, again, we're doing the same thing tonight. I think 120 is more than fair. You okay with that, Scott?
Sure, yeah, yeah.
All right, so line item 26 would be a timeline of this project has to be completed within 120 days to bring it up to township standards and building inspector's approval.
Do you need to list the ramifications, Mr. Attorney, or no?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
All right,
If
then
they're
we're going
not
to
done
have
with
to
that
move
period
on.
of time, then the board can simply reconsider it and
Okay.
decide to revoke or not.
Right, then we're going to have to move on to item 27, which includes the
point.
sprinkling. Again, Mike, we have to kind of, I know it's coming into the winter, and it's going to be tougher to dig ground up and put in 6-inch mains, but
Yeah, I cannot come up with a reasonable time frame on that.
I'd like to say just if it's not sprinkled, you can't use it, but that doesn't seem to hold water with these people.
So that would be my recommendation.
Hold water, you get it?
But, yeah, I guess, as Scott Supervisor mentioned, we need to meet and agree on a schedule. It's just arbitrary picking a date tonight.
Here's what how about this, Mike? If the 27th recommendation is that you three do meet, or who, not necessarily you if it's not the right person, and put together a plan within 90 days to meet what you can live with for expectations on sprinkling those buildings. Got to start with a plan. You don't have a plan right now.
Well, can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Set a certain period of time in which the plans are submitted to Mike and they're approved. Then another, I don't know, date, and Mike have to advise on this as to when they actually have a contract in place to make those improvements. Does that make sense, Mike?
Yes, I would like to have it in writing that to keep this thing flowing forward, not, 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, so.
What do you figure, Mike, 30 days to get the plans approved?
Yes, I'll work with the architect. We've been working together on this pretty well here the last few months here, so I'm sure we can get it resolved.
All right, so item 27 would be a grace period of 30 days to compile a sprinkler system plan with your approval to start, would it be,
Construction schedule.
yep,
basically.
yeah, there you go.
May I make a suggestion? Why don't you simply say submission of a sprinkler plan and construction schedule within 30 days?
So by sprinkler plan, you mean physical plans or just a plan of?
Yeah, I don't know that you'd be able to get a proper application into the town in 30 days. I don't know where they're at in the design realm.
Okay.
To start from scratch. 30 days.
You give you a timeline within 30 days.
Well, I think you gentlemen can work that out.
Yeah,
As long as we have something submitted to the town within 30 days of what the plan is, of some sort of schedule.
and we value our businesses in the township, and we want to work with you guys, but yet we have certain things we have to do, and we need to move this forward. It's gone on too long.
You may want to add a submission of the plan within a certain period of time, but completion of the plan within another period of time. And again, I understand what the problem here is, at least I think I do, is that you can prepare a plan and you can find a contractor, but to get the contractor to actually install it is a different ballgame, right? It's a different problem? Okay.
Same building, we've been waiting for metal siding, fire station.
Mike, how long do you think it would take once the plan's approved to actually get it installed? A year? 9 months?
Again, how long do we allow that building to be occupied?
Well, may I make a suggestion? You may want to have this back in front of you within 90 days to consider, see where where everything stands. They're making a good faith effort to get everything done. Makes a difference.
I got to believe until they see an actual plan, you're not going to know what's involved, how the details are, and
Right.
how long it will take. But is that going to be counterproductive? We're going to okay this conditional use permit with these conditions, and then all of a sudden now we got to pull one back out?
Well,
Well, we've reviewed conditional permits before, though.
yes, you have.
Yeah, I guess that would probably be the best way. That part of the motion would be to review this within 90 days to see if this is, if these,
Progress.
yeah, if these 27 conditions are being withheld or followed through.
Would that mean this public hearing is continued?
No, it'd be a new public hearing.
Okay.
I think that would be a separate motion after this. All right, does that work? I got to regroup this now. So number 27 is 30 days for the applicant to submit to the building inspector some sort of plans for sprinkling the buildings that are required. And I don't know, you want to set a timeline on? Yeah.
Mr. Chair, you may want to say submission of plans to achieve sprinkling. Or sprinkling,
I have, part of that, my own perspective on this is that it needs to be agreed upon, signed 90 days with some senior level person signing off that they're willing to go forward. I don't want to find out they've got a plan and then say, well, we can't fund it till 2024. I get nervous on that, so.
I understand.
I want a plan agreed to or reviewed again in 90 days, but I want someone to sign off on it.
All right, and plus too, I think this is a great spot to also put that if these conditions aren't met in that timely, we will stop use of those buildings, whether it's a matter of pulling their business license or just basically red tagging them.
Reserve the right to revoke the conditional use permit.
So we still need that time, that amount of time, and that's, I mean, it's already been going on.
Since February 20th.
Too long.
What's the board feel comfortable with?
Well, I guess I'm a little on the confused side. When we want to reconvene this, I think we should have a plan in 90 days, if that's what you're asking.
Well, we're giving them 30 to come up with a plan.
Okay,
We're
30, the other, so to fix the buildings now, are you back to that?
No, just a sprinkling.
Just this, okay. Well, I think 30 days to put it.
I really think that if Mike gets a plan within 30 days, he can look at it and then discuss with them what is reasonable to.
Yeah, I think in normal months, 30 days, but we're at the holidays. I think, I'm realistically think you got to go 60. There's just, business doesn't work real well through Thanksgiving and Christmas, so I'm okay with 60 to be, sorry, Scott, but.
You're being really cooperative.
Well, 30 days, half the world shuts down at the holidays, so it realistically,
All right, Chad, can we put it at 60 and then also leave it to the discretion of the building inspector to come up with a timely construction timeframe?
I wouldn't put it that way. You could ask Mike to report back within that 60-day period of what a plan that he feels is acceptable.
Or if we review it within the 90 days of pulling this back up for the board to look at?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, you can't delegate timeframes to Mike, much as we trust him, but you can't do it.
All right, so let's start over. Item 27 will be, the applicant has 60 days to complete a construction schedule for sprinkling systems for the buildings in question. And I just lost it. No, I think we'll leave it at that, because then we're going to add another motion after that. That work?
Yes.
Oh, you guys are exhausting.
I can see the smoke from over here.
All right, any other questions or comments of the applicants?
Sorry, could you clarify?
Well, you want to come up?
Sorry. Could you clarify what the expectation was again?
All right, we added on your list of conditional uses, we added number 26. That's the timeline of 120 days to bring those non-compliant buildings, the structural part of it, up to compliance.
Okay.
Then we added 27, you have 60 days to submit a sprinkler system construction plan. Because right now, we have no idea what's involved in doing that. We have an idea what it takes to bring the buildings up, but the sprinkling, we don't. Oh, I was going to add, on that 27, the 60 days, once we get the plan, but I would like a caveat in there, if you guys cannot complete the sprinkling project in a timely manner that will be decided by the board, we will pursue legal action and red tag this project.
Okay. Two clarifying questions. One, I guess what is expected in the plan? So is it a timeline?
Well, that would be up to Mike's discretion.
So you'll have to have a professional submittal.
And Mike can go over that with you.
Okay. I get Mike, because I don't know what that entails.
And we don't either, we're not engineers.
Can we accomplish it in the timeframe would be my question.
Which is why you're coming back in 60 days to tell us what you can do and you know, how long it's going to take. But first, you got to tell us what you're going to do.
I mean, as an example, if Scott stated realistically, it was 9 months for his thing, we need to know that.
Okay.
I don't,
That's a weird instance.
sure.
Nowadays,
Well, it's just, the board is not comfortable, you guys keep using these buildings, they're not sprinklered, and that's a requirement. I don't even think, I think you guys might think that's a little bit a liability issue, that you're operating a business not compliant with the regulations. It would make me nervous if I was the owner, put it that way.
Well, I mean, it's a really good point. Let's just say that the worst case scenario happens and a fire does break out. That's going to look pretty poor on a newspaper, that the buildings were not constructed per safety. And that's what we don't want to have happen.
That answer your question?
I think so. Yeah.
All right, obviously, there's no one here, no one else in the audience to speak to this, so I'd look for a motion to close the public comment.
I'll move to close the public comment portion of the hearing.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, Steve, you feel comfortable with this?
I do. I feel comfortable adding the items lines 26 and 27 of the conditions, as we've discussed.
Any other input, Scott?
Well, don't you have to read?
I will. He has to do any questions.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine. Yes, that's fine.
All right, Evan, anything else?
Nope.
So, based on the Planning Commission and staff review and recommendations, I recommend approval of the conditional use permit, which allows the construction of the 3 buildings at 4141 Hoffman Road, subject to the current conditions plus 2 additional conditions. Should I read what I think they are?
Yes, you should.
Okay. Adding number 26, which is a timeline of 120 days to complete the structural repairs of the non-sprinklered buildings as identified by the building inspector that need to be brought to compliant.
Well, if I may, Mike, are some of the buildings that need structural repairs, do they also have to be sprinklered as well? So actually, I wouldn't use the phrase non-sprinklered, I use all buildings.
All buildings, okay, thank you.
And we need to change that to all 7, not 3.
I was just going to ask you about that.
All 7 of those buildings within 120 days. And then condition number 27 would be 60 days to submit a sprinkler system plan as approved by the parties and building inspector. Yeah, he's got his question back there. That's what.
yeah, again, I'm hearing plan, I'm hearing construction,
Line item 26 will be completion of the upgrades to the building.
Yes.
27 will be a submittal of a
Yes.
sprinkler plan.
Again, 26 is structural upgrades.
Right.
Yes, structural upgrades.
Within 60 days for construction schedule.
For the buildings that have a sprinkler system.
Well, aren't you saying submittal to the building official of sprinkler plans and schedule for completion of all of sprinkler improvements?
Yeah, what he said.
Yes, just exactly as that.
All right, that clarify it? All right,
Again, these plans are that must be approved by the building official within that period of time.
Right. Then do we, at the same time, do I have to say that the board wants to see this again in 90 days? Or is
I
that
think we'll make a
separate?
separate motion for that. I don't
You
think
could
they
make a separate, yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, actually, I take that back. I think you should make this part of this right now.
And both 26 and 27 would like to be conditionally reviewed again in 90 days.
So this is this is number 28 then.
Yes, it would be number 28.
Okay.
That's number 28.
And how many days? I'm sorry.
90 days, I think we said.
All right.
we'd come back, because they got 60 to get it done. Get it on.
I'm getting older just as we speak. Anyway, anything else, Scott?
So we would reconvene toward the second meeting in February to see how are things going,
We'd be holding another public hearing in 90 days.
just to see, have you got what you needed? Are things moving? Are we still where we were?
Or we pull the permit.
All right.
We have to make clear it's another public hearing, so that we have the proper
Yes,
notice.
another public hearing in 90 days to review the status, I guess.
So we got to make sure we get that posted, right?
Yes,
Noticed.
right, exactly.
All right, that it?
So did you want to repeat your motion?
No.
Our our recording secretary will do a fine job.
She will refine that to make
I'll second that.
All right, motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. I would recommend you folks,
If I may, Mr. Chair,
what?
add one other point. The reason for granting this is the fact that there have been representations made by the applicant that they will complete these in a good faith manner and timely. And that it's being reviewed again in 90 days because of safety issues.
Okay, and plus two, I was going to say, especially to you, Ed, you may want to make sure that the powers that be are well aware of what's going to happen in 90 days, and I would recommend someone be here. Because this may be a financial issue for you guys, for your business, if these things aren't accomplished by then. And you better make that really clear, and I would like to see some kind of representative from the company here. I mean, I don't even think it's fair to throw you guys under the bus, because I know we were kind of hard on you, but I think this is setting a little bit of an example in the town, which we don't want to see continue, so. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. We have another public hearing. God, I hope this one goes quicker. We have Crown Castle Verizon Wireless looking to do a modification to our 4151 Hoffman Road Tower. Again, I need a motion to waive the reading.
I'll move to waive the reading that was properly published in the newspaper.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Mike. Motion carries. All right, I need a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll move to open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
That's too bad the flower.
All right, Evan, you gonna go over this for us?
Certainly. This will be hopefully a little bit longer than our previous one, but again, we have another conditional use permit amendment. When you get a cell tower built within the township, it requires a CUP. Whenever you co-locate or add antennas onto an existing tower, that also goes through the CUP process. So essentially, we're amending the previous CUP for this tower. Verizon is looking to add some antennas as well as some associated equipment to the existing tower. The equipment would be located at the ground level within the current fenced-in area around the tower site. This was reviewed by the Planning Commission at their October meeting. It was recommended for approval. You will note that engineering staff did review the plans. There was a few comments they had for some revisions to make, which have been forwarded to the applicant. You'll also note that as part of a condition of the approval, that the applicant would revise their plans to address the comments from our engineering staff. With that, the recommendation, again, from the Planning Commission was to approve. One, the project shall be built according to the plan submitted and reviewed with this request. 2, the applicant shall revise their plans to satisfy comments from engineering staff and submit the revised plans to the township. 3, the project shall adhere to applicable requirements of the FAA. 4, if the antennas are unused for a period of 6 months, they shall be removed. 5, the project shall secure any applicable permits. And then 6, the project shall comply with any applicable rules or regulations.
I'm guessing this organization has a pretty good track record of following following similar requirements?
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay. That's right over here.
Yep, right on Hoffman Road.
I thought of one more question, just out of curiosity. You said that they're,
That way, actually.
sorry,
That's the old township site, right?
Yep.
Town hall site,
okay.
yeah.
They're co-locating. When was this originally constructed?
I don't have that date in front of me, but there was a co-location, I believe, earlier this year or late last year, if you do recall. So it's not too uncommon to see these requests come in. Essentially, you want less towers, and so in order to have less towers, they'll just co-locate on existing structures. So
That it? Scott, Steve?
No, I have no questions. It's pretty straightforward.
I got a couple. Oh. We own that tower,
I believe so,
Yeah, we
yes.
do.
so we constructed it, or we had a company construct it?
That I don't know.
That's just a ground lease, or did we actually build the tower and lease the tower?
I don't know who built it or what. I just know that it's ours.
I think it is our tower.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so obviously we have leases for
Before I was here.
I know.
Patrick. We have leases for anybody who has anything on the tower,
Oh,
correct?
yeah. Yeah, we've approved several here.
All right, so when they're adding all these, I don't know how many were there? Somewhere in here it said how many additional,
I'll pull it up here.
I thought I highlighted it, but maybe I didn't.
There's 9 new antennas, if that's what you're.
Yeah, that's what so that's total,
New,
9 new.
correct.
All right, so we have to redo our lease to add these 9?
Not necessarily. It could be a sublease situation, or these could be antennas belonging to the present lessee. We'll have to, without seeing the actual lease, we can't answer that question.
Well, 'cause I'm just curious, does that get the township any more funds?
Yeah.
Well, so then we do have to redo the lease to show for that, don't we?
Oh, wait a minute. The leases that are existed there, yes, those derive funds for the township. I'm not sure about this. I wouldn't think so on the subleases. Chad?
We'd have to, we'd have to see the lease.
Yeah, I don't think on the subleases we do.
I don't know, I guess it's something we should ask anyway, because I thought this would generate more revenue for the town, adding these extra.
Well, keep in mind, you really can't, if they meet all the conditions, you really can't turn it down.
Well, no, I'm not saying that, I'm just,
Once the cash in.
Well, to Evan's point, if towers are being consolidated, I'm guessing that there's some others that are being decommissioned or removed, and then they're being located
Well, it's not
here.
necessarily they're being decommissioned. It's just typically when a company wants to construct, it's much more easier to just co-locate instead of building a new tower. And we don't want to over proliferation of towers. And so it's very common to see many users on one tower versus one tower for each specific company. So
If there's new antennas, then to Ed's point, is there some kind of incremental?
It's entirely possible. We'll have to pull the leases to see exactly if that's a simple ground lease in which we lease the land for the tower itself, or we actually own the tower and lease it.
I gotta
Sounds to
believe,
me like we do own the tower.
I gotta believe the lease agreement must state who's on it, how many antennas are up there.
Well, I would pretty much guarantee it does, but you'd have to see the language to make sure, not understand exactly how it works.
So what I'm getting is, don't we have to rewrite the lease to add these? So what I'm getting is, do we have to table this till we find out?
No, I see your point. No, there's two separate issues here. One is is a simple conditional use permit amendment, which is what you're dealing with now. The second is the lease. So you got your you got your zoning authority, which you're dealing with right now, and then you got your business authority, which we might be dealing with in the future, after we see the lease and have a chance to review it. But you got to separate the two. You cannot condition renegotiation of the lease upon approval of this.
Okay, so, but does that obviously just, it doesn't matter if we redo the lease then, if we okay this, because they could just automatically go in there and put.
No.
Right,
Oh,
so
no.
that's what I'm trying to get, the cart before the horse here.
Yeah, so maybe I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. These are two separate issues. This is a zoning issue, and you're simply approving the amendment to the conditional use permit. That's all you're doing is allowing them to potentially co-locate more antennas. Whether they have the right under the lease to do it is a separate business issue, which we have to review the lease. So approving this does not automatically change the lease.
Clear as mud.
Yep, pretty much.
All right, well, let me try it one more time.
This is the first step, essentially.
Step,
And so
exactly.
They might end up moving forward after you approve, and the second step would determine if they actually do carry it out. So you guys have to verify
So do we have
the
to make
lease.
another line item of item 12?
No.
That we want to see the lease agreement?
Step one is give them the right to add the antennas. Step two is, do they have the right to add the antennas on the lease?
Maybe that's something you ask Patrick to.
Clarified for the next meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
So no, this is only, as Evan's exactly right, this is step one.
I was just worried about step one automatically includes step two, and, because
No, it doesn't.
we don't even know when the lease is up, do we?
Well, they all have they might all have, there's several carriers on there. They may have, their leases all might vary when they come up, would they not?
Well, I mean, that's a problem. Each site has its own group of leases. We'd have to look at them, and none of these, there's no such thing as a cookie cutter cell phone lease. I'll tell you that right now. I've seen them, and for the most part, they're very similar, but there's always something a little different. This is one of them, the right to add antennas. So we have to check it out.
Because we don't even know, are they all Verizon wireless antennas?
No, they're in our packet. I can tell you,
I'll say T-Mobile was the last one.
T-Mobile was done in 2004. Clear Wire wireless band was done in 2009, looks like. Dish in 2021. Yep. So, and Verizon Wireless in 2022. So there are several already on there, all of which may have different lengths of leases or conditions.
Yep.
Yeah.
So first is, can they do it? The permit, if you look on page 54 of the packet,
I got it.
I think we can see that they've been around for a while, this thing, so.
My recommendation to the board would be, is to probably, after we're done, pull the leases and have the leases analyzed.
Sure.
That sounds like a really good goals and objectives for the next topic.
Nice segue.
Well, I noticed Evan had said maybe this public hearing will last longer than the prior one. We're on that way.
I thought I was being sarcastic, but
That landed with a thud. So yes, let us, as staff, provide more clarity for additional discussion. Now, does the board, as the township attorney has recommended, should they approve step one tonight, essentially, or do you want, or should they wait until we've got additional direction or information?
No, I think you need to deal with this now.
All right, because this doesn't give them, this is just giving them a conditional use permit, but they still have to come back to us with a lease agreement before they can proceed with this.
Sure.
Depending on who owns the tower and what rights.
Well, no, it's not depending. We own the tower.
We own the tower.
Okay, all right. So, I'm an attorney, I don't believe in it. Right. This is simply, now we're just simply dealing with the zoning issue here. We deal with this, as Evan put it, step one first. Then next, step two is review the leases to determine what has to be done before they can co-locate more tenants on that tower, which we own.
All right, board comfortable with that?
I am.
Well, let's start with though,
Aren't you
if
something?
there's no other questions of staff, I need a motion to open up for public comment.
I'll move to open the hearing for public comment.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Anyone in the audience wish to speak to this issue?
As a resident, I am thoroughly confused.
All right, hearing none, I need a motion to close.
I'll move to close the public portion of the hearing.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, any last discussion before we move on with this?
No.
Hearing none. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion based on the planning commission and staff review and recommendations, approve the conditional use permit, which allows co-locating of antenna equipment on the tower at 4151 Hoffman Road with the I think there were 6 recommendations in our packet, and I'll read those if you want.
There was 11.
Was 6.
6. I think Evan pointed those out. The project shall meet,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
listed on 44 and 45 of our packet.
Yep.
I don't have to go through all of them.
I'll second that.
All right, motion made second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Good job, Evan.
Thank you.
Didn't quite beat the other one, but,
Got close.
Tried.
Sure did.
all right, last item on the agenda is the town clerk treasurer annual performance evaluation.
Run, would you?
See how.
And I had a question about this. Is there any roadmap that, do we have to do this publicly? Or Patrick, do you want it done publicly?
Yeah.
The staff member has the right to have the hearing done publicly or in private.
Okay,
It's strictly up to the staff member.
And I remember you guys having some level of discomfort with this last year. If you want to go to close, I don't mind. It doesn't bother me either way.
I prefer to do it in a closed session, only from the standpoint that we are broadcasting this publicly, and I just don't want people to misconstrue any commentary as necessarily as a negative reflection on our township and the performance. I just think it's something we should talk about privately.
Okay, that's fine.
Scott?
Fine with me.
Well, only because obviously your performance evaluations of our whole staff are done in private. And it just seems very odd that we throw you up here and do it publicly.
It's not odd. It's fairly commonplace
Huh?
for CEO level. But like I said, I remember you guys having discomfort with this last year. If you want to go to closed session, that's fine.
I'm pretty sure the CEO of United Healthcare does not have a
No,
public.
but he's not funded by public funds.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Okay, so for the public, now I'm clicking. Now I got you.
Yeah. Now, Pat's right. It's relatively common for city managers and basically, let's face it, Pat's your city manager, your town manager, to have their reviews done in a public hearing.
I'm okay.
I'm used to doing performance appraisals in my prior existence, but where we don't, as a board, we don't really have the elective to sit and converse collectively to come up with an appraisal that
No,
we
you
can
don't.
all agree
No, you
with.
don't.
And that is where I struggle. I just think
Well, unfortunately,
that's
the law is clear on that.
Sure.
I know what you're saying, but the statute has been in place for quite a long time, and they haven't changed it. Don't expect it to change anytime soon.
All right, what's the board's pleasure?
I guess it's
Actually, it's what's Pat's pleasure.
Pat's
Oh, I'm
choice.
sorry. Yeah.
I'm okay with, if he wants to.
Do it
have-
publicly,
Yeah,
I'll
fine.
do it. I just,
All right,
We even had an audience here last year.
come on up to the podium, Mr. Clerk Treasurer.
You can leave.
I'll leave.
We did have an audience last year, I remember that.
We had 4 different people.
so as a point of order, and I don't remember from last year, did we take each of our commentary and put them into one performance appraisal for you, or how did we?
Send it to Chad.
Send them all to chat.
Yeah.
Oh, I can email this to Chad?
I'll hand them to him tonight.
I'll send you my email.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
We'll start. So I sent out before 10/7 evaluation forms 10 days ago. You received the goals, objectives, accomplishments, that sort of stuff. Mid-afternoon on Friday for your consumption. I don't know. I guess we could follow the same format that we did last year. If each of you wants to make comment individually on the performance, that's fine.
I think that's what we did last year.
That's what we did. And then if you want to, after that discussion, add or subtract to the list of goals and accomplishments, you're welcome to do that as well. So last year we began with Steve, we went to Scott, and then we finished with Ed as the chair.
Oh, no fear. I'm fine. I'm willing to talk first or second or third.
Go.
What do you want? All right. So
I don't see any buses coming.
No, I don't either. So I'm going to make some comments based on the performance review clerk treasurer evaluation that was provided to us, blank, where 5 is an excellent and unacceptable is a 1. Okay. What I'd like to comment on is some of the things that I think you've done exceptionally well. I think you're one of the leadership managerial qualities is functions as a self-starter, sets high personal standards, and pushes goals with a higher level of personal drive and energy. I can't be more proud of what you have done in that category. I think that fits with what you've done and are doing.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to tell you the things that I think you're doing an exceptional job on, and you meet all the other ones that I'm, so I'll take a few minutes. Parts of the evaluation form have to talk about your leadership. The second part is your judgment and sensitivity. The third is knowledge and skills and board relations. I struggle, and then staff relations and community relations are the categories that we're asked to review. Some of the items in the performance evaluation form, I think, are hard for me personally to evaluate because I don't see you on a daily basis and your performance with your staff. So I'm going to comment on some board relations from my perspective where I think you've done an excellent job. The categories are excellent, good, satisfactory, needs improvement, or unacceptable or no basis. I find it hard that any of us could have no basis for a judgment, but with that said, I think you work closely with the Board of Trustees in developing the mission and long and short range strategic plans. So I've changed that to our board, and I think you have worked well and close with us and have done a good job with that. And you have always been readily available to individual board members, at least from my perspective. I have seen an endorsement of our policies, procedures, and philosophy of the board as it currently exists. I have not seen any exceptions to that. I think you do an excellent job in that category. So those are the things that I said I marked exceptional. I had 32 categories that I felt you did a good job on, and a few that are just satisfactory, and some of those are hard to judge simply because I don't see on a daily basis, as I said. So I'm going to just finish what I have comments on, and then someone else can take over. Other comments, I said I mean this with all sincerity. I look forward to another strong year of your overall leadership. I think you do a quality job there. Your major strengths, in my opinion, are communication to and with the board. The written documents are very clear, and you use sound legal opinions and reasoning while consulting with our attorney. So that's good. Areas that need future development. I said holding staff, and again, this is from my perspective because I don't have a lot of things to say otherwise. Holding staff leaders to the established goals. You really, I'd like to have some conversation with the board about what you're holding staff to, because you have a set of goals, but how are you driving that with the staff that you have to work with? And that's pushing the staff to exceed the expectations. That's another thing I think you should demonstrate to us that what you're doing to motivate the staff. And the staff I'm talking about really is your direct reports. How they do with their group is another leadership item for you. Communication, staff goals, and milestones to the board. Tell us periodically what you're expecting from the leadership, particularly in a time when we probably are going to have some personnel changes. It's important for us to have a confidence that that there's nothing falling through the cracks through this, so communication. And the assistance resources that are needed to address the development needs, I said you can use your HR consultant, the town attorney, and board input on what to do. I had no issues with the goals that you set for yourself for next year. I think those fit with the current year's accomplishments. Going forward, I thought they were all good. So with that, I'll stop for a while.
For a while.
I can come back and talk for another 20 minutes on you. I won't.
All right, Scott.
Well, he obviously reserves the right to come back. So I would echo a lot of what Steve had just said, which is why I'm glad he went first. I looked at all the different areas, the different descriptions, and I felt the overwhelming number were excellent or good. I did feel I had a couple no basis for judgment just because I personally haven't seen you do it, so I'll throw that caveat in there. What I did see as far as your major strengths are, you've got a ton of ideas. I don't know how you keep them all in your head. They just seem to come popping out all the time. And you're always on to something new, which is great because, as Steve had mentioned, that's the sign of a self-starter. Okay, we've got to work on this, and we've got to work on this, and you've got to work on this and this. And so that's super. And also I've noticed, even though you've got all these ideas, when somebody is speaking, you are like you right now. You look kind of focused. You're grimacing, but you're focused because you're listening to what I'm saying. I've seen others, not here, in other settings that somebody's speaking and they tune out, they zone out. I don't recall seeing you do that. So I think that's really very important because listening to when somebody else is speaking, even if you disagree with them, they're speaking to make a point and you seem to get the point. The areas that I thought maybe could use a little extra work is sometimes you are racing ahead so fast that there are times that I think you get a little ahead of yourself, and this is just my perspective. And then later on, when more information comes in, it's like, okay, well, didn't turn out the way I thought we were going to start going down this road, so now we're going to come back to this road. That's just an observation. Also, I will say, you mentioned CEO a minute ago, and it caught me off guard, and it shouldn't, because you are the highest employee in the township. And something that stuck in my head a while ago that I learned is consider your shadow as a leader. You're a leader. You lead these folks. You have a style that's your own. Okay, we got that. But even if something that I've had to deal with, and I'm sure everybody does at some point, is even when you're not trying to make an impression, you, by virtue of your role, are making an impression. People pick up on that. And I would just say, keep that in the back of your mind as you are speaking or sitting or listening or participating or whatever. Keep the shadow of a leader in mind. And then when it said what assistance or resources, I was going to turn around and ask you, what can we do to help?
I I believe I alluded to this in my objectives and goals for the upcoming year, was being more seen in the community and taking advantage of educational opportunities, going to more seminars. I mean, this last 18 to 24 months with the pandemic, I mean, all of us, and it's not just me, those of us who are at an administrator level in a city or a county or whatever have felt a disconnect to the rest of our community because we just don't have those outreach opportunities that we had. It's one thing to be looking at and talking to a two-dimensional screen during these additional or extra educational opportunities and networking. It's another to actually be on site and getting to know your colleagues. And not just me, we as an administrator community just haven't had that opportunity. We are having our first Ramsey County administrator meeting hosted by the Ramsey County manager, Ryan, who is since I think the 3rd or 4th month since I've been here. I don't know what the deal was for the first year that I was here, why we decided not to have those, but I know that we specifically didn't have them because of the pandemic and some of the strict requirements and rules by Ramsey County that prohibited employees getting out, even becoming manager. So we're starting the whole community's kind of getting back into that and meeting in place or face to face. So I would say that if there are more resources for continuing to understand the modern perspective on being a municipal official, those are the things that I'm going to do more this year. And I think it kind of kills two birds with one stone too. It's adhering to what you're suggesting, getting better at the job, and number two, it's getting out in the community more with people that I work with. So yeah, that's been a shortcoming, and I mentioned it last year too. We just haven't had that opportunity. So, but that is changing for the better. It feels like. Well, I don't know if anybody wants to be around me like this.
No.
They're probably
Thank
going
you.
to tell me just not to show up.
Yeah.
Is that all, Mr. McCune?
I will be quiet for now. Was that the phrase you used?
Sounds like you're going to get a rebuttal.
Sounds like it.
Thank you, Scott.
I'm starting to sweat.
Well, the advantage of going third is because pretty much everything I've got written here has already been said, and I don't want to be redundant. The only thing I can say is because as chair, I have a lot more involvement directly with you because there's a lot of stuff that, not day to day, but almost week to week, that we have to sit down and discuss before it even comes to all three of us. So that gets to me to where I'm in the office a little more than these folks, but you've got great personality, you've got great conversational skills, you got great people skills. You, as Scott said, are at the top of the food chain here, so you lead by example. You basically, they're going to follow your lead. The way if you act professionally, they'll act professionally. If you're timely, they're timely. You dress accordingly, they dress accordingly. So I see that as a positive, and I also see the end of, or the side of you where you've got to deal with staff conflicts. A lot of the board, you guys don't hear about some of the problems. Obviously, when we have 18 total employees or whatever the number is,
20 now.
yeah. So you're not going to get 20 people always agreeing and always getting along. So I don't envy in that position, and I don't know how you even do it sometimes because that's above my pay grade. But I give you credit for that because that takes a special person. I did reach out to at least half the employees personally, called them just to get an overview of how things were going. That usually means there's some grumbling. Everybody's got their pet peeves and things, but it seems like in fact, that was, when I look back, that was one of my comments to you last year, that reaching out to each individual employee with concerns or questions, getting out there, being more one-on-one with them versus just group meetings, I think they all appreciate that, because then that gives them a chance to vent if there's any issues going on. I know this is going to be really hard here in the next year and a half when we start this gray wave coming. We're going to rely really heavily on you for your guidance on how we transition. We're all going to come and go. Hopefully you'll be around for another 20. So you are the township when we leave. So the board moves around, but you've got a pretty heavy workload for you. One recommendation, I love the Friday follow-ups, but I think they also have to include a lot more of Public Works. Because when there's a water main break, I'd like that on that report. If there's a tree down, I don't even care what it is. A lot of times when residents call, as long as I know about it and I'm not blindsided, then it makes it easier to respond. So, but I do, that's a great working tool for us. So we're not, we still, all three of us still have other outside interests and we still have jobs. So we can't constantly monitor what's going on in the town. Even though the residents think we know what's going on all the time. Sure. You do, we don't. Let's see, what else do I have here? Part of the thing, what I was, just by talking with a bunch of the staff members too, following up on, I don't know if you guys, or if we promote any extra training, any more schooling for our staff. I know, like I said, we invest a lot in some of our public works and then they move on. It's like, we just lost that entity. So that was an issue. I'd like to see if we're pursuing that. But overall, I can congratulate this board for making a very good choice when we decided to pick you. What was it? 3 years now?
4.
4. Hey.
Well choice.
All right, Steve, you want to?
Oh, no,
Rebuttal?
I think no. I think you called it just the way it is. I think that's excellent that you were able to reach out to some of the staff to get a little input, because that's an area that is distant for me, is I don't talk to the staff. I do talk to them when I around and about in the township. I make a point of always waving, honking, stopping, talking.
You guys see it.
Well,
They do. They report that to me.
It's nice. We are a small community of 20 staff members. It helps a lot. So
And I don't think it's this board's job to micromanage your job. So,
I don't think that I don't appreciate that.
well, but we rely on, that's why we rely on you, so. But again, a lot of these questions on here dealt with how you dealt with staff. So I didn't feel comfortable filling out some of those evaluations until I talked to half of them.
Understood.
And they're not ready to throw you out, so it's a good thing.
And I mean, this, to be honest with you, I mean, in an administrative position, it depends a lot on the makeup of the board, whether you're getting amongst the employees bothers this level of position or not. And you guys are all rational, common sense, thoughtful people that don't overreact to input from the residents or employees. So from my position, I think it's probably beneficial to us that you guys do talk to them on occasion, because I think that gives them an opportunity to tell you that it's going okay. And like you said, not everybody's going to be happy every single day that they show up or every single day that they leave. But
Well, if you can make 20 people happy, you're in the wrong business.
I should be selling elsewhere. We did just have today, actually, we had our para representative come in and speak to us all. And I started working out the numbers to retirement. I will be here for 16 years, as long as the board has a place for me.
Actually, I just did get an update from Lynette when I was in there today on that. It just offhand, I made a suggestion about it, and she filled me in.
Yeah. So actually, it was one of the best para presentations I've ever seen, because she was done in 35 minutes. And it was all good news for everybody. So.
Well, and that's another thing that it's nice. It goes on the weekly report that we know about this, that this is the stuff that we don't see every day. I wouldn't have known about it unless I was in there today, so.
I'm happy to put that on my weekly wrap-up on Wednesday.
Anything else, Scott? Well, you're good for another year.
Yes, you guys. Steve, you look like you have an addition.
Oh, no, I was just going to say the best thing you can do is be consistent in your direction and evaluation of the staff. The worst thing is if they feel that there's favoritism going on, and I have not had anybody ever bring that up. So straightforward.
Everybody's treated equally and fairly, and no one's given special attention to them because, I mean, in this position, there's always a chance that you have to do something unfortunate. It's tough to pay for someone no one else in the back of your mind. So I know we had one employee who just left that was upset, not upset, was concerned that I wasn't making enough time for public works. He was really the only one. But I talked to him about it and told him my reasoning why. Just, I don't get super close to anybody, but I'm not distant either. We have a great staff, and I think that you mentioned, I can't remember if it was Steve or Ed who mentioned motivating factors. We have motivating factors because for a township or a city this size, we have to be optimally efficient. We're understaffed, in my opinion, but everybody is so dedicated to it and works towards a successful organization. I think that's our motivation.
And I hope the township residents appreciate that, because we do expect a lot of staff, because we're pretty thin on a lot of, yeah.
Is the word. But I think that we do very well with whom we have, because we have a pretty dedicated group. We have people that have been here for 30 years, several that have been here for that long.
Well, that's a testimony in itself that someone would,
This is a well-run organization, and it's a rational township. And I look at the other boards that some of my colleagues work for. I'm very thankful for where I'm at right now.
So we are unusual?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're in one of the more, probably the most rational group of town board or of either, town boards or city councils that I've seen. Shoreview's pretty rational, but
They're pretty good.
but they can get, but they're pretty good, and Little Cannon's pretty good too. But no, you guys are best.
So,
We should get on the front cover of League of Minnesota Cities magazine.
not the township magazine anymore.
Nope,
I know.
nope.
all right, any other questions or comments?
No.
All right, thank you, Patrick.
Thanks. Thank you. Appreciate it, guys.
All right, moving on. We have no added agenda items, and we have an empty house, so there's no open time. I need a motion to receive agenda material and supplements.
So moved. Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Then I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned at 8:42.
Oh, we can leave it up.
Leave
Good.
it up.